We're a couple days into the 2024 Atlantic hurricane season, so in this video we'll be looking at when we might see our first named storm and what the tropical activity looks like over the next couple weeks. Right now, not much happening. You have some, some tropical waves, some, tropical thunderstorms, but nothing really organized into any tropical cyclones at all in the Atlantic or the Eastern Pacific. And there isn't really anything. The NHC has nothing expected during the next 7 days. Looks pretty quiet in the Atlantic and the Eastern Pacific. And this is a map kind of showing where conditions are favorable or unfavorable for tropical storms, and this shows pretty much the entire Atlantic is pretty much unfavorable right now. You do have, it is favorable apparently down in the southern Caribbean, and then even this section over here in the southwestern Atlantic is also somewhat favorable for some tropical activity. But you do have, there's shear, and there's Saharan dust, being spun around here, but actually not in the Western Caribbean and the Gulf. There isn't really much Saharan dust at all. So that's kind of interesting. And the shear is actually going down. A few days ago, we had way above average shear. The shear was near to even way above average, but now, and it does kind of go up and down, but now it's really dropped. We have pretty low shear in the Caribbean, and in the tropical Atlantic is also really low, down to pretty much what it would be in the peak of the hurricane season. And this year, the models are predicting very low shear. This is the GFS actually showing pretty much, it does show things are pretty much quiet for the next couple days, except you could have something try to spin up kind of off the coast of Central America over here in a few days. We'll see what that does, but you see this is kind of this Central American gyre that's really, starting to intensify, and that, it could spin up some storms. And the GFS is really, over the past couple days, it's really over the past day, it's really uptrended, showing more activity around this gyre. And then this does spin up a storm that actually hits Florida, and this can happen, like Tropical Storm Alberto, the first named storm of 2018. It actually formed in this exact same area pretty much, and did this exact same thing. Yeah, that's an that's an Alberto track right there. That's an pretty much exact copy of what Tropical Storm Alberto did. And and this can happen. Even the previous run, the 12Z run, showed a similar thing. And this can happen where you have that Central American gyre like Alberto. You had Hurricane Michael and also Hurricane Idalia doing the same thing. I think even Ian was also similar, even though it might have started off in the Caribbean. But this could be possible, but the GFS is really hinting at some more activity in the Atlantic, so we could see, our first tropical storm, and it would be named Alberto. So this is Alberto 2.0, possibly. Now, it's going to change some. It's probably going to change, but, we could get the first named storm of the Atlantic hurricane season somewhere in this region, in next week, like maybe next Thursday. That could be a possibility. And then after that, you have other systems. This is spinning up even more systems. You have possibly, disturbance here, but then this whole area in the northwestern Caribbean and the southern Gulf of Mexico, you have even more activity spinning around this whole gyre thing. And then this is the Euro is not actually really excited about any activity at all, pretty much, and So, we'll see if it changes, but the Euro is not showing anything. The GFS is. The CMC model, which actually I think it was pretty accurate in 2020 in predicting some of those storms, but it really shows nothing. So we'll see what happens with that. But the GEFS, it actually is showing a lot more storms. It's really hinting at starting pretty much June 11th, next Tuesday. It starts showing all these, potential areas where there could be a low pressure system forming, and in that northwestern Caribbean area around Cuba and the Yucatan Peninsula and also southern Florida. And this really intensifies. It's showing a lot more potential for a low pressure system to form. So this could be where we get, the first tropical storm of the season, and then that continues. You still have over that Cuba, Florida, Yucatan area, this area over the next, from pretty much June 11th to, this is going into June 20th. Still you have all this potential there. And so that's where it looks like we'll have, a tropical storm or multiple tropical storms forming over there. And then the potential is there for an Eastern Pacific storm, but the Eastern Pacific doesn't look that active, really, and that will happen with a La Nina, that it will really turn off the Eastern Pacific and really activate the Atlantic hurricane season. And also in June and July, you tend to have a lot of storms, more so that form in the Western Caribbean, the kind of western part of the Atlantic, the Gulf, all that, and they can spin up pretty quickly, but usually they don't get super strong. But since we have the La Nina and the record high ocean temperatures in the Atlantic, I think that some of these storms could intensify a little more than what might be expected for early in the season. And this is the GEFS. It keeps going. Then this is showing into early July. Then it's like really thinking that there's going to be several tropical waves that could intensify into hurricanes or tropical storms. And now, interestingly enough, it's showing some of these turning out to sea. It kind of looked like before that it was going to be like, oh, we're going to have, all these storms, coming from, the Cape Verde area, the west coast of Africa, going through the Caribbean into the Gulf and stuff like that. Now, that could still happen, but, for now, it looks like there might be, like, two areas of tropical storms forming. If you get some over here that will turn out to sea, and then you get others that form in the Caribbean and will impact, more land areas. This is the MJO. It was looking pretty unfavorable a few days ago. Now it's starting to look more favorable. Not as extremely favorable as what they were thinking, but still, now it's already showing favorable conditions for June 4th, June 9th. This is over the, Eastern Pacific, but more so the Western Atlantic, showing June 4th, June 9th, June 14th, even into June 19th, before some of the less favorable conditions seem like they'll move into place all the way into early July, even into mid-July. So there's like this time period where it's like we'll probably get some storms and then it stops, but then it'll get really active again. And this is the CFS kind of showing that they were showing that, yeah, it looks really favorable. And then it still looks favorable next week. And then this is June 18th to June 25th. It looks really favorable over the Eastern Pacific and the Western Atlantic. And then it keeps going even into June 25th to July 2nd, before then, by early to mid-July, it looks like things will probably be very unfavorable over the Atlantic, and more favorable, in the Western Pacific, the actually the interestingly enough, this is the Climate Prediction Center. They have it looks like they're showing a slight chance of tropical cyclone formation from week 2, that's June 12th to June 18th, and week 3, June 19th to June 25th, over this whole, that Central American region. So that's where it looks like some of these storms are going to actually be forming. And this is also the CFS kind of showing still a lot of activity over the Central America region in the East Pacific with a lot of rain, and then also, storm activity going into the Caribbean over Florida, stuff like that. And then, that kind of continues, even moving up further in the Eastern Pacific. But also the Gulf is going to be active, potentially, the Caribbean somewhat, and then the main development region is not going to be active for now. But then you do have the kind of intertropical convergence zone, the storms coming off the west coast of Africa, not super active, but it's pretty far south, so that could help avoid some of the Saharan dust. But also, it really doesn't look active until we get to June 25th to July 2nd. It really gets active now. It actually moves a bit further north, but the storms kind of go past the northeastern Caribbean. But then you also have more activity in that Gulf, kind of western Caribbean. So we'll have to see what happens with that. But yeah, that's showing this by late June, as you start getting the main development region starts to get activated. But then it almost looks like some of these storms are kind of missing the Caribbean, which is interesting. So some of the storms might do the whole thing where it turns out to sea again, but we'll see. And you also have the Eastern Pacific not looking very active at all after July 2nd. It really turns off. And also, we're not in a La Nina yet, so during the peak of the hurricane season, the impacts will probably be a lot different. Also, the NMME model they'll actually have a new one on June 8th, so we'll have more information to see what this hurricane season is going to look like, an updated look at that, because it still looks like, everything's there for it to be a really active hurricane season. Like, I was predicting, I did a preseason forecast, and I was like, 20 to 28 named storms, 8 to 15 hurricanes, and 4 to 9 major hurricanes, which is, that's a hyperactive season. That would go and, go through the entire list of names, which is only 21 named storms. That's a hyperactive season, and having those storms going into the Caribbean, that's not something you want to see. But and also the NHC, they issued their most active initial preseason forecast. So that's pretty bad, for them to do that. That is concerning. We'll just have to see. Just definitely have to see what the activity looks like, week by week. But the upper ocean heat content is very frightening to see all of this, and we're only in the beginning of June. Yeah, that's not good. This is stuff you'd see, deeper in the hurricane season. Like, I think the ocean temperatures right now, I think they're as warm as they could be at the peak of hurricane season. And we have ocean heat content up to like 150. That's on June 3rd. That's not good. And it's much worse than it was even in 2020. That's the frightening thing, that we have a La Nina just like in 2020. We have, all of that just like 2020, but with more ocean heat content, with hotter, sea surface temperatures. Yeah, that's not good. because this is upper ocean heat content up to 100, maybe close to 125 in some areas in the northwestern Caribbean, but we have a lot more. And, you know, because there haven't really been a lot of hurricanes really tearing through the Caribbean in the past couple years. Really, like, last year there was nothing in the Caribbean, so that's just adding more and more and more heat to the ocean and building up that upper ocean heat content. And these are the sea surface temperatures. You have, you know, anything over 26 degrees Celsius, 80 degrees Fahrenheit is what you want for a hurricane. And yeah, that's there. In the Caribbean, the Gulf, even the East Coast is starting to warm up to that too. And this is way above average. Like, you have just extremely above average temperatures right here. This is, you know, anywhere from like 5 degrees above average to even, I don't know, 6, 7 degrees above average in Fahrenheit in some of these areas. So that's, you know, some record high sea surface temperatures there. And then you have the La Nina, but also, this is 2005. The 2005 hurricane season, the first named storm was actually on June 8th. So just because you don't get any preseason storms doesn't mean anything. It's like, once it starts going, then there were actually only 2 storms in June, but then July was really active, August, September, October, and it went really late, all the way into the next year. You had, you know, storm forming on December 30th. It's like, so this could be a season that lasts a while, because some of those models are showing a lot of activity in the tropics, even later in the season. And then this is the La Nina forecast, and it was showing that it looks like there's going to be a weak to moderate La Nina. It's not even getting that strong. It might be just stay a weak La Nina for the whole thing. It's like, that's, yeah, it might not become that intense. Maybe a moderate La Nina towards December, but during the hurricane season, maybe a weak La Nina, maybe going towards a moderate La Nina. And then the hurricane names, yeah, these are the same names from 2018, except a couple that were retired, but, you know, these are the same names as 2018, and then instead of the Greek alphabet, because, you know, that got used in 2005 and 2020, but in 2020, some of those Greek-named storms had to get retired. They have a additional list of storms for the hurricane season, so that's there. And then, yeah, so we'll have to see what happens over the next couple weeks, the next few months with the hurricane season. And it does look like it's starting to heat up. It's about to get pretty active. So thanks for watching this video. Please be sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel for more weather update videos. Extreme Weather Zone out.